Hi, I'm Jennifer Stein. I'm your host for Mainline MUFON's program here at Radnor Studio, Channel 21. MUFON is an acronym which stands for the Mutual UFO Network. It's a 50-year-old organization, and it's dedicated to the scientific exploration of the UFO phenomenon for the benefit of humanity. Mainline MUFON offers free monthly educational programs at the Tredyffrin Public Library, so for more information you can visit mainlinemufon.com. My guest today is Marck Brinkerhoff, who has had conscious physical contact with beings from higher dimensional regions beyond our Earth since he was 4 years old. He has been seeing physical UFO craft with and without witnesses most of his life, including his immediate family members and several close friends. Marck describes himself as a contactee, a walk-in, a remote lucid viewer who has both clairaudient and clairvoyant abilities, and he can speak telepathically with animals. Marck's also a Reiki master in the healing arts. Marck is able to call in interdimensional extraterrestrial craft to be witnessed and photographed by himself and others. Marck appeared in the documentary film by James Carman called The Hidden Hand, discussing this benevolent aspect of his ET interactions. Marck has had a long, close relationship with the late Ingo Swann, who headed Stanford University's remote viewing research laboratories. Ruth Montgomery, who wrote a book called Strangers Among Us, met Marck in 1980 and immediately recognized him as a true walk-in and told Marck that she believed he was from space. Marck lectures on his experiences and provides seminars and teaches others how to raise their vibrational frequencies and make contact with their own higher dimensional guides and soul groups, helping them discover and understand their own true life purpose. Marck is a talented artist with a gift for illustrating his experiences. He can show the beings that he comes in contact with. He works in oils and pastels and graphite, and he's a gifted sculptor. So it's a great pleasure, Marck, to have you here at Mainline MUFON.
Thank you.
Have you come and present and share here at Radnor Studio.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You explained a really interesting story last night, which I think is very important for people to know about. And it deals with an event that actually happened in England. And it ties into a very famous event that happened in England in 1977. I think it was like November 22nd, 1997.
26.
November 26th.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the event that leads up to this.
Very fascinating. I had met a group of people in Yorktown Heights, upstate New York. And I came from Mahopac, New York, Lake Mahopac area. Well, when they were interested in learning about more, they invited me to come and join their group. So it was a lot of fun. We'd go on group sky watches. And if they were with me, they'd see something. If people left the group early, something would happen and they had missed it. So it was, I would say, just hang with us. If nothing happens, just give thanks anyway, because they test people like that. So what happened is I was driving over to one of their meetings. It was going to be like a Thursday or so night. So I'm getting over to around 8 o'clock p.m. And I'm driving through an area where it's totally dark with no street lights, really, very scarce and sparse because it was cattle pastures. There's a side road. So I'm going along and I'm driving, and my headlights on the car flash 3 times, go tick, 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 3 times. Now with that old car I had, you had to pull out, shut the lights off like that. But nothing like that happened. So I pulled right over because that's a sign for them, from me. These 3s with me. And 3s, 12s, things like that. So I pulled over and I went out of the car and I looked up and said, what? It's pitch black with stars. And they said, just get back in the car, it's okay. Telepathic. So I said, I got back in the car, shut the door, and that's when Astron, he projected his voice into the car.
So you were literally sitting in the car and you heard this voice as if it came over the radio, or it was in your head, or it was just loud in the car.
You looked in the mirror to see what just happened. Someone's in the back seat. It was that big and voiced. So I started laughing. Right?
And what did the voice say again?
He says, hi. I said, hi. And I'm looking in the mirror like, this was a car that was a 2-door car, so there's no one there. So I said, oh. And he says, well, I'm with you on the ship. And I said, oh, yes, I recognize your voice. He says, I just want you to do something, really. We're going to do an experiment. You're going to the friends tonight. Tell them to write down my name and here's how to spell it. So I had an art pad I always carried with me, and pad. So I took it out. I said, go ahead. I know your name, but he said, go ahead, spell it A-S-T-E-R-O-N. So I said, okay, got it.
So
he says,
Asteron, his name is Asteron.
Yeah, that's his name. So I said, oh, Asteron, right. And he says, well, when you get there, make sure they take the name down because it's very important. We're going to try a test. And I said, okay. He said, but wait, I'm not going to say when because right now we're working it out. So, okay. He says, just want you to know it's coming up. I said, okay, we got it. He says, okay, see you later. Meaning, see you later is see you later on the field because I skywatched till 4 or 5 a.m. So this was about 8 o'clock at 8 o'clock. I was going to that meeting. And I was already delayed because of that experience. So he says, see you later. So I said, okay. Then got back and I just started driving back to their house, their place. And I got there. I was late because of this. They said, Mark, what happened? I said, well, I got delayed on the road with them. They said, oh, did you see something? Well, not exactly, but they did things. And here's what they want. They said, okay. I said, everybody just has to write this name down. It's one of the commanders, but his name's Asteron. And he's like my big brother. It's like a feeling that, as soul groups go and friends. They said, so please write it down. I don't know what they're planning. They're planning something, but they said, make sure you write this name down. It's very important. And it's a test, but we don't know when. See, they all wrote it down. A week later, I had been out late, 5 a.m. or whatever I do when I skywatch, and my friend, one of the friends calls from that house, and she says, did you see the latest paper today? It was Monday. I said, no. She goes, do you have a Reporter Dispatch or any of those papers around? I said, yeah. My father gets them in the morning. She goes, go check this out. She goes, page this, or whatever it was. And I went and looked it up. Sure enough, there was a whole article on it. My father also had like a post to one of these other papers, so I looked for it in there, and I found another article. I had a couple of articles from different papers, but I didn't show that on the screen. But I have them. And all of them said Asteron. And so my friend Georgia at the time, she's on the other side now, she says, Mark, everybody's been calling me, and they're all like, what? They said, we would have thought this is a joke if Mark hadn't told us this a week or so before from the crew.
Right.
So that was what happened. So I said, if there's a way, because other people were coming out with information saying it was this name, that name. They were all making this stuff up after about a month. It was like Ashtar, all these things.
Let's first explain what happened to everyone watching.
Sure.
So in this was November 26th, right, 1997, over southern England. There were probably only 2 or 3 television stations at that time. But the airwaves, the air channels were interrupted. So the television broadcasts that were regularly scheduled during that time, I think it was a Saturday evening at about 8 o'clock at night, the airwaves were interrupted. Suddenly, everything went black and white, and this major voice came over the networks. And the voice identified itself. It said, hello, my name is Asteron, and there's this message he gives out. Do you remember the gist of the message?
Just the gist of it, because I had actually in England, I got a transfer from the people that heard, but that was a whole different thing.
Right, people literally wrote it down. I think there is a recording of it, but it might just be an invented recording.
It's an invented recording.
Based on what people wrote down, but it was like, my name is Asteron, I'm here from, he identified where he was
representative from the intergalactic mission.
Right, I'm a representative from this intergalactic mission, and I have a message for humanity that we need to, be more peaceful, we need to do away with our nuclear weaponry.
Weapons of evil or mass destruction, whatever they would have been
weapons
back then.
of mass destruction, you have to be aware.
And to them, evil is nuclear weapon. Anything that works like that destroys fabrics of the aura and the spirit or the soul. It doesn't destroy a soul. It just causes destructive energies like holes and spikes.
Right.
So you
probably not
keep
only
your soul
on our Earth, but in greater other dimensions as well.
That's why they try to hold back, rescue people from things that might be a big blowing up disaster. Where there were, so he said that they would have to live together in peace, or we'll have to leave the galaxy. And my friends said, "What does that mean? Is that like take it? I'm going to blow up the planet?" And I said, "Never blow up a planet. That's against the law." What that means is that people have only a certain time, and he even said there's only a little time for the people to live together in peace. This means there's something's happening in the future. And I came in for this experience to come here for this message because of the crew. Right. So this is the message I'm here for, is to get the act together, start living benevolently. We're all brothers and sisters in essence. and beyond.
Right.
So we want to live together in peace, and that's the harmony in this in space, that they live in peace in that way. Their thoughts of hurting another would never come in. They were fascinated by, why do these people want to, on this planet, want to kill, murder, and do things? And they said, we've never seen this before. There's nothing like that. And it's because of human, which means animal man, was genetically interfered with to create species here so they can come in through soul travel or so reincarnation. And it's real. And I remember where I came from way before I got here, so I told my parents everything. So this was the astron, but he meant, if you got to live together in peace or leave the galaxy, that meant our planet in this solar system, this galaxy, is moving into a higher frequency in space, which we've seen in space. When I'm out there as a child, I used to tell my parents what I was seeing. I couldn't explain it well, but I did as best I can. Our galaxy is moving to a frequency of high magnetic frequencies beyond what we are understanding here right now. And the souls and the physical bodies have to adjust. And they've adjusted through times, yes, you know, like genetic upgrading, or what they call little dimensional things happen, and the species will form, or the brain will get better in different ways and protective against the different rays of the solar projections from the sun and the star systems. So we have this going on, but what's going on is this planet's moving faster towards its other frequencies with the magnetic space areas. Well, the souls have to adjust to it, and if they're into greed, anger, hate, drugs, alcohol, heavy addictions, or even murder, and there's all kinds of things. We can all think of the most evil things that go on. That means if they can't get rid of that, live together in harmony, and repent of it, and get rid of this from their energy field, those souls will not be able to go to that frequency of the, and maybe reincarnate on planet systems there too, as well as Earth. Earth is shifting higher. And that hasn't shifted totally high yet, but they have to do that. If these souls cannot get their energy grade up frequency, we call it, those souls reincarnate back to this other galaxy coming from another. We have many galaxies following us, and there's many systems and planets that are in those galaxies that can have life, and we do in this galaxy. It's Earth-like planets as well. So they're coming up, so they'll bring those souls to reincarnate in this planet system. This way they'll come through the same frequencies again for thousands and thousands of million years, and that it won't be a planet with a lot of evil, so they can cleanse it out of their energy field. This is a dross energy. In fact, they call it the dross energy. In fact, in that article that Astron spoke about, he says the dross, meaning negative thoughts, evil things that people contemplate but don't maybe do. They say if you think it, you're doing it. Because on those realities where we come from, the higher frequencies, anything you think becomes real in those frequencies. And they said if you're thinking this, it's already projected around your energy field. And that's how they see us from the higher levels. They see us as a crown chakra opened up in lights. So the light is aiming up. And I've seen it, I've done it, we've scanned people, we've scanned the souls. So we look down and we see the lights that are glowing the brightest. That means people who are aware, open, and love of Creator. And those are the souls that will be teleported, which they've done to me, teleported to the ships in case of disasters or earth change experiences or catastrophic extinction events. And it's just happened before, and that's how they bring them back. So if people aren't ready with that, they don't get taken. They will, like the movie Knowing, this is funny, the movie Knowing was like, oh, there it is right there in the movie, almost that same theme. Those people couldn't come because they couldn't do it, but the children were rescued, some children, not all. Some of the animals were taken, animals are innocent, and that can happen. They've done that before, and we've done it. They're called the arcs. And we have the ships called the Ark of OVNIS, which we live on. And they're massive soul ships. That's where our oversouls reside. So
I was amazed by the
on the high
pictures
frequencies.
you were sharing last night, the drawings.
And I've taken people to the ships with us. They've had experiences with us. But these are people who are not into drugs. And I know I talked about my friends in England. They were not drug people. They were peaceful people. They called themselves rainbow people. But they were very peaceful. They weren't taking drugs. And I told them, I said, you can't take any kind of drugs if you want to go with me. No cigarettes. If you do smoke, calm it down. It's okay. They'll still get you there. Drugs and alcohol, and heavy thoughts of anything, no. Because when you meet the space people, my friends have met, I said, you cannot have a carnal thought in your mind that comes from this planet system, the way this Earth is. People look at each other on their looks and beauty, and that's not what it's about. We come in different ways, so we're supposed to look through the inside of the soul, who's who. So I said to a friend who was taken on a good benevolent ETs, I said, you can't get on a ship and have a carnal thought to a beautiful space woman or man, depending, right? And I said, because everything you think, they see, and that it's immediate telepathic. So one of my friends did that. He went on the ship, and I drew an illustration of that, my friend Bryce, but he's on the other side now. So there was a beautiful space woman, an entity, an ET, that I've taken my other friend Georgia to meet, same entities. And I said, Bryce, you didn't think anything when you saw her, because she was really pretty, you know. And I drew the illustrations for him. He says, Mark, I did. He says, as soon as I saw her, I was like in my head going, whoa, like that. And she looked at him and she smiled, and she telepathically sent to him a message saying, not supposed to do that. So you are living with all these beings, and they're all beautiful people. But you're not to have any thoughts like that, because it's oneness of soul and love. And people are drawn together, soulmates, etc. And you're drawn together, but it's with purity. And there's no jealousies, and there's no anger, and none of that going on, because it's all like, we understand. So if someone's upset with somebody, they go, it's okay, yeah. And they all work it out. So this happens with these beings. So if we can't get it together, which was the message, those souls get taken to another galaxy. That's what I mean, leave the galaxy for another life form somewhere, usually a human-like being in another galaxy, another planet system. So they get a chance to come back through the same frequencies, relearn the energy, not in the evil way, and join the alliances and all that. Because this planet was a test. It's almost like a petri dish. It was very strange. So it was also quarantined at one time too. So it's
Stanton Friedman used to say that. He would say he thinks that
I didn't know all that.
The world, that this Earth is sort of like a penal colony, and it's where we send all the, you know, the burglars and the pickpockets and the robbers, and they have to kind of work it out here.
It's boot camp Earth, we call it. Sorry, but it's not funny, but it is boot camp.
But back to this amazing event that happened. I don't want to lose track of this train of thought that we had. So this event really upset the telecommunication company in southern England, because to overtake those airways was not an easy thing, and they did not know how it was done. Still to this day, they do not know how it was done, and they looked for a long time trying to identify who was responsible for this so they could prosecute them. But they could never find Asteron. They had no idea who this person was, but they did try to track it back to a small group of people who were friends of yours in England, correct?
The rainbow people.
They're called the rainbow people. So talk a little bit about this, because you actually went to England to meet them to verify they had the correct name.
I went to England to meet the persons who in London heard the actual messages. Not everybody heard the whole message.
You went to the different broadcast networks and talked to them.
No, I met some guy, one of these men who was part of that whole network, and he had transcripts of what he was able to get. And he said no one has the full message. It was all like different TVs, people turned it on, they heard something happening. There was no visuals, no tapes, no visual tapes.
Yeah, nobody
so
had
everything's
VCRs.
online is a hoax, basically, but it's like somebody got some transcript and they're talking about it. There was no ET with big eyes or any of that. There was no image of that sort. There was an image of a person, but it wasn't an ET with big eyes and all that. The thing is Astron told me he didn't really have a real visual going on. He looks like staticky, but this was a relay that happened from high frequency. So what happens is I met the man, and the first thing I did is said, question, what name was it that you heard and the people all heard? He said, Asteron. I said, can you spell it? He said, sure, A-S-T-E-R-O-N. I said, like the articles? He says, yeah. That was the main thing. I said, well, that's good. So I told him what had happened to me. So then I was in Frome with some friend there, and we were sent there in Frome, and this group came to Frome. This is the Rainbow, the UFO group of Warminster at the time. And they came up to me and they said, we were told telepathically, we had a little meeting in a zone, whatever they were doing. And they said, a man from America is coming, he's going to know all this information. He's got dark hair and blue eyes. And you're going to meet him, and he's going to tell you all these different things and all about the other dimensions, and he's not from Earth. That's the whole thing. They told me what they said. So they were there watching in Frome, these people coming in, and they kept going. And one time, looking around for this American, and they saw me. And I'm not tall, and not this, but I am tall on the other side. So the thing, they went, well, we're Rodney and all this. we were told this information. You fit the description, but we were thinking somebody real big and tall. I said, that's the joke about this joke. So they said, you're the person we're supposed to talk to. So they invited me to stay with them at this big house. And I stayed there for almost 3 months. And we went out
3 months
skywatching.
you were there?
I took them
Wow.
out of body to the ship. And they would all remember. Again, this is the information that they were about. So they told me how they were blamed for it. And then they came to investigate their house. They would look in the backyard, see if there's transmitters, nothing.
So the police were trying to nail it
They were
down
trying
to this
find,
little
yeah, they
group
figured
of
a
people.
UFO group had something to do with this. And they were like 12-year-old girls. It's just funny. So they were saying, they were trying to blame us. One lady worked at the bakery. Another guy was a mailman. Another guy was, it's like crazy stuff. So they were blamed, but not blamed. They said, well,
Right.
you guys had nothing to do with this. You don't even have the money for this.
Right.
No one they never found. So they never found the
Right.
people. They won't, as you know.
Wow. So for people who are not familiar with this type of interaction that you're able to have and help initiate for others, you've been able to actually draw the beings that you've come in contact with. And I think you actually sent some of your drawings to the studio here.
Yes, some of the original old pastels that I just tried to get something to have down for pictures for people when I had to talk. One is what I saw peripherally when I was a child in the field, and I was asking to go home because I knew where I was coming from and everything, and I knew where I was out of body or soul travel. And so I was asking, is it possible to go home? I can't take it here. It's too much. It was 4.5. And the ship pulled over, stopped above me, and I was all excited. And they said, just sit down. So I just kneeled like it's a field, a football field. And the ship went over and hovered. Peripherally, I now saw it. And they make it so you can't really move with their energy fields because they don't want you to get excited. They calm you down. So then there was a beam, and the person came about 8 feet tall, was walking over the grass, like a levitation walk. And I noticed it, so I saw the light under the feet from the ship. So this is what they do. They come in the frequency of their ships, if they're from higher dimensions. So they keep a frequency, or they wear something that keeps them balanced here to form and stay for a little while. They don't stay forever. They just leave after 5 minutes or so. So when I had an experience with an ET, it was about 10 minutes at the most, and then he dematerialized when he went. So they took, the pastels would be the beings taken on the beam, going up. What I saw when they opened the doors, we were cleansed with a lavender purpley light of energy. I saw the Earth from the distance. They took me around the Earth, around the back of the moon, went off towards Mars and Jupiter and Saturn. We came back again and went around the Earth and came back, and they put me back in the field. So the encounter started from 7 p.m. I snuck out of the house, and it's like 30 seconds to run up to the field. And they brought me back at 11 p.m. And I had to get back in the house without anybody seeing me. And they put me in between a frequency where I could walk into the back door, shut the door, and everything was still. They had a TV set going. My parents were sitting on a couch. I had to walk in front of them, and I was invisible to them. And they were in still motion. My mom smoked. She had a cigarette. Everything was in steady, still motion.
Wow.
I went back. They said, get to the room. So I got to the room. As soon as I went in and shut the door like this much, all sound came back on. Everything was back to normal. So they never saw me. And I think Betty Andreasson had a similar effect with one of her experiences where she was taken in between. And I called it this. I said, what do I call this? They said, call it the space between spaces. That's where the angels also will work with people between. So we'll be still and not moving. And they're telling us the information to give to us. And they're walking normally. It's amazing stuff.
So you and your wife are working on some books that are going to come out. Do you want to tell anyone about the books and where people are going to be able to find them?
Okay, we kept pausing with these books because once you put it out, we were waiting, oh, this is going to be an avalanche of information coming at us from other people. We have a galactic type, different book we're working on for a handbook. It's almost omniversal. What to expect, what to do, what's the soul out there, what's going on, how you can go around. But the other one was a different type of book with information where people can have an experience, they can know what it means, a spiritual as well as a dream experience. I'm a dream, I can interpret a dream, you can tell me something, I'll see it and hear it totally different than what the person's expecting. And the other one is a symbols book, we're calling it now, omniversal symbols. Because I was always seeing these symbols on the ships when I was a child. I say child when I was allowed to wake up in it as a lucid remote seeing. I'm in a totally different body, but I would be where, oh, I'm sitting here from Earth, and they'd get back and they'd bring back the information I saw. But I also knew totally different things, so I told my father that. I said, I know this information, I can't talk about it here, but I can tell you this. And I was a little kid. He said, it's interesting, this is happening. So I saw these walls with moving light. They're huge walls, and they would move, and these symbols would go by, but I thought they were interesting artwork as a child. I said, oh, that's pretty, it's beautiful. And they move, and they're 3D, and they move around. And then they go. You get a feeling of beauty from it. As I was getting older and going towards the ship, I went towards the walls. And in 2014, I made a specific focus to not forget to go over to the walls now and touch them and get up to them. So I was walking with the crew and our other friends, and I, as Mark, snapped in, meaning they allowed me to open up my own over part, realized, oh, here I am on the ship. Oh, I got to go to the wall. So I said, everybody stop. I got to go to that wall, touch the walls. And that's when I put my head and touched them. And then I was in flux with everything. I said, oh, this was never just artwork. This was held back. And they said, we had to hold back. It's not ready for that information. You have to be blocked from that. So they make you think it's art. They make you think something else. So now I've been given the okay to bring some of these back with me. And sometimes my over self, as I call it, the over self, or we're aspects of our over self. As like a salt shaker, I said to people, the over self is a salt shaker. All the salts inside are aspects. And 1 grain of salt is you and me right now on planet Earth, as your over soul, as one aspect. Jennifer here now, Mark here now. Other aspects are in other galaxies and other frequencies and dimensions as well. And it all happens at once in those high realms with the Oversoul, who has all the knowledge of all of them, all of our aspects. Male, female, doesn't matter.
But one aspect can influence another.
Yes.
So as you start to make decisions and try to do your own self-evolution here, it helps you in other dimensions, and probably vice versa. Things happening in other dimensions influence ours.
This is where we train and teaching we call the ET activation. I teach it on the ships to the Etherians on 12th frequencies. We're up there at 12th dimensional plane. But I come down to the 7th, 8th, and 5th, and 6th to teach the some of the Etherians this information. They allowed it. They said, it's okay. This is the same information I taught the friends in England in 1978 and my wife, Phyllis, who I met in 78. I taught her this, and we all go out to the ship. So they said, you can't always do this with average people. Not yet, and they're not ready. So now they told me in 2008, people are hearing it, they're getting ready to understand it. Now I can teach these activations, and they always meet their higher self.
Sounds like galactic entanglement.
It's
we have
deep.
We know about entanglement here,
Yeah.
but it's sort of sounding like entanglement on these higher levels.
And like you leave your body out of body, you can connect to your higher self body, which is a blend. You just blend in and have that information right now in your head. If you come back to when you're out of body, come back, you can retain some of that information if it's allowed. And you'll be information you might never have heard of before. And so we call it instant knowing. You'll be like, whoa.
Mark, this has been so fascinating. The fact that we have so much more to talk about tells me we have to have you back.
Thank you.
And you have to be able to share more information. So if people are looking to connect with you on the World Wide Web, what's the best place? MarckBrinkerhoff.com?
Facebook would help, because on Facebook under About is all the links to intergalacticmission.com, and MarckBrinkerhoff.com is an art site. And also we have a fairyrealitysite.com, and it's about fairies in Nature Kingdom with photographs and illustrations.
And people can see some of your artwork online as well.
MarckBrinkerhoff.com is an art site for animals and things, and dinosaurs, whatever.
Well, I've been so delighted to have you here. If anyone wants additional information, they can also go to Mainline MUFON.
Yes.
I provide the links to your sites as well on my site. Thank you so much for coming here to Radnor Studio and to Mainline MUFON.
It's been an honor to be here.
It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.